The first thing everyone in the lobby heard was the sound of a little girl's backpack hitting the polished marble floor. It echoed through the towering glass headquarters so loudly that every conversation stopped. A bright folder slipped from the bag, scattering hand-drawn sketches and carefully written dreams across the floor while dozens of employees watched in uncomfortable silence. Standing over the frightened child was the company's celebrated CEO, whose cold expression made the moment even more painful. The little girl bent down to gather her papers with trembling hands, fighting back tears as strangers looked away, afraid to intervene. She had no idea that within the next hour, the same building would witness a truth so extraordinary that it would change every life inside those walls forever. Some moments reveal who we truly are. This was one of them. 10-year-old Hazel Carter had spent weeks preparing for her first visit to Ashford Technologies. Her father, Graham Carter, had promised that if she finished the school year with excellent grades, she could spend one day seeing where he worked. Graham had always described the company as a place where brilliant ideas mattered more than expensive clothes or impressive titles. Hazel imagined friendly people, giant computer screens, engineers solving impossible problems, and adults who treated one another with kindness. Life had never been easy for Graham. 3 years earlier, his wife had passed away after a long illness, leaving him to raise Hazel alone. Every morning he packed her lunch, braided her hair despite never learning properly, attended parent meetings, cooked dinner, helped with homework, and somehow still found time to volunteer at the local community center. He never complained. Every sacrifice he made was for the little girl who still believed her father could fix anything. That morning, Graham had to stop briefly in another office before meeting Hazel in the lobby. He smiled, kissed the top of her head, and reminded her to stay close to the reception desk. Hazel nodded confidently, clutching her folder filled with drawings of inventions she hoped to show her father. At almost the same moment, CEO Vivian Hale entered the building surrounded by executives, assistants, and investors. She had earned a reputation as a fearless leader who transformed struggling companies into industry giants. Unfortunately, success had slowly replaced compassion with pride. She valued perfection above people and efficiency above understanding. Employees admired her intelligence but feared her sharp judgments. As Vivian crossed the lobby, she noticed Hazel sitting quietly with her backpack. Before anyone could explain, Hazel stood up too quickly, accidentally stepping into the CEO's path. The collision was small, but Hazel's folder fell open. Colorful sketches covered the floor. Vivian frowned. Without asking who the child was or why she was there, she assumed Hazel belonged to a visitor who had ignored company rules. She criticized the girl's appearance, questioned why children were allowed in a professional workplace, and remarked that businesses were no place for childish fantasies. Every word landed like another stone on Hazel's already frightened heart. Hazel quietly gathered her papers. One drawing showed a wheelchair-accessible park she hoped cities would build someday. Another imagined affordable medical devices for children. None of the adults laughed at her drawings. They only looked ashamed that no one had defended her. Hazel whispered an apology she didn't owe. Vivian walked away without looking back. Several employees exchanged uneasy glances. They had witnessed difficult meetings before, but humiliating a child felt different. Reception manager Clara Whitmore hurried over and gently helped Hazel collect the last page. She noticed tiny tear drops had stained the corner of one drawing. Clara knelt beside the girl and softly told her never to let someone else's opinion decide the value of her dreams. Hazel forced a brave smile. "I'll be okay," she said quietly. Minutes later, the company's board members assembled in the executive conference hall for an emergency leadership announcement. Rumors spread throughout every department. Nobody knew why the board chairman had requested every senior executive to attend. Vivian entered confidently, expecting another routine presentation celebrating the company's strongest financial quarter in years. Instead, the oldest board member stood and welcomed everyone. He announced that after years of working quietly behind the scenes, the majority shareholder had decided to accept the position of executive chairman and personally oversee the company's next decade of growth. The large conference room doors opened. Walking inside was Graham Carter. He wore the same simple suit employees had seen countless times. The maintenance badge he had carried every day was gone. In its place rested the chairman's identification card. The room fell into stunned silence. For years, Graham had intentionally worked inside the company under a modest role while keeping his ownership private. After inheriting significant investments from his late grandfather, who had helped establish the business decades earlier, Graham chose not to lead from luxury. He believed the only honest way to understand a company was to experience life alongside ordinary employees. He repaired broken equipment, shared lunch with security guards, listened to frustrated interns, and learned every weakness hidden behind polished executive reports. Only the board knew the truth. Vivian stared in complete disbelief. Then Graham's eyes slowly moved across the room. He recognized the CEO immediately. His expression remained calm, but something had changed. Not anger. Disappointment. The board chairman invited Graham to deliver his first address. Instead of discussing profits or expansion, Graham spoke about dignity. He explained that every employee deserved respect regardless of title, salary, education, or clothing. He reminded everyone that innovation was born from curiosity, not arrogance. Companies survived because people believed they mattered. Then he quietly mentioned that someone very important to him had visited the building that morning. Many executives shifted uneasily. Without raising his voice, Graham described how his daughter had been humiliated before she even stepped inside the workplace her father loved. No names were spoken. None were necessary. The room became painfully silent. Vivian understood instantly. For the first time in many years, she felt the full weight of her own actions. After the meeting ended, she walked alone through the lobby. Hazel was sitting beside Clara, carefully smoothing the wrinkles from her drawings. Vivian looked at the colorful pages again. This time she truly saw them. They weren't childish scribbles. They were thoughtful designs filled with kindness. One drawing included playground equipment that children with disabilities could enjoy alongside everyone else. Another imagined emergency shelters powered by clean energy after natural disasters. The ideas reflected compassion beyond Hazel's years. Vivian realized she had judged a child before seeing her heart. She quietly apologized. Hazel listened respectfully. Children often recognize sincerity better than adults. She accepted the apology, not because the moment had disappeared, but because carrying bitterness would only make her own heart heavier. Watching from nearby, Graham felt proud, not because he had become chairman, but because his daughter understood forgiveness better than many successful adults. Over the following months, the company began changing in unexpected ways. Executive training no longer focused only on leadership strategies and financial performance. Every manager completed empathy workshops. Employees were encouraged to mentor local students. The headquarters opened its doors to schools for educational visits. Suggestion boxes became innovation programs where ideas from every department received equal consideration. The maintenance staff, receptionists, cleaners, interns, and engineers all gained direct opportunities to present improvements. Morale transformed. Productivity increased. Turnover dropped dramatically. Clients noticed the difference. Kindness had quietly become part of the company's competitive advantage. Vivian changed more than anyone. She started eating lunch in the employee cafeteria instead of her private office. She visited departments she had rarely entered before. She learned employees' names. She listened before making decisions. Whenever someone praised the company's remarkable cultural transformation, she always remembered the little girl whose scattered drawings had exposed the cracks in her own character. Months later, Ashford Technologies hosted a community innovation fair. Children from across the city displayed inventions and creative ideas. Hazel nervously presented her redesigned accessible playground. To her surprise, engineers volunteered to help build a real prototype. City officials attended. Local charities joined the project. Within a year, the first inclusive playground opened in a neighborhood where children of every ability laughed together. A small bronze plaque near the entrance carried a simple message: "Great ideas begin with kind hearts." Hazel smiled every time she visited, not because her name appeared on the plaque, but because children were playing together exactly as she had imagined. Graham often stood nearby, grateful that his daughter had taught adults lessons no business school ever could. Vivian attended the opening ceremony as well. She watched children race across ramps, swings, and bridges designed for everyone. She remembered the frightened little girl gathering papers from a cold marble floor. The memory never stopped hurting. She hoped it never would. Some pain deserves to stay because it reminds us who we never want to become again. Years later, employees still shared the story with every new hire, not to embarrass anyone, but to remind them that every person walking through the company's doors carried dreams invisible to everyone else. A title could earn authority, but only character earned respect. Wealth could build offices, but kindness built communities. The greatest leaders were never those who demanded admiration. They were the ones who made the smallest voices feel heard. Before this story comes to an end, take a moment to leave a meaningful comment about the lesson that touched your heart the most. Do you believe one act of kindness can change an entire workplace, or has forgiveness changed your own life in a powerful way? If this story touched your heart, remember to carry its lesson into your own life. The greatest victories are rarely measured by promotions, titles, or wealth. They are measured by the lives we lift, the dignity we protect, and the compassion we choose when no one expects it. Every stranger deserves respect because we never truly know the story they carry. Sometimes the smallest act of kindness becomes the beginning of someone else's hope, and sometimes a single moment of humility changes a life forever.